What happened that time you saw the fury of a patient man? Story 1. Me and a few of my friends used to frequent a pub in my hometown. It was a small place in the town center, a traditional English pub, complete with attractive barmaid and consistent regulars, us included. Every time we were in there, a guy would be sat at the bar on his own with half of bitter. He'd occasionally join the banter, but was never loud or drunk. He was a nice bloke, always said hello and smiled. We knew him only as Ray. Now, Ray was about 60 but fit. Not big, just a normal looking guy, a few forearm tattoos, pretty standard for the north of England in the 90s. One Saturday afternoon, me and four of my friends were having our usual couple of drinks as it was Saturday and there was a football match on. Three away fans walk into the pub, which is already a brave move, but this is a friendly place, so everyone eyes them suspiciously but carries on drinking. They walk to the bar and immediately start being horrible to the barmaid, making lewd comments, complaining loudly about the beer, etc. Ray looks at these three guys and says, "No need to be rude, guys. She's here to do a job." Cue a stream of verbal abuse from the away fans, such as, "Shut your mouth, Grandad, what are you gonna do?" etc. The regulars are having none of this. Everyone, me included, stands up and stares at these idiots. Ray turns to everyone and just says, "Sit down, lads, I'll deal with this." Turns to the away fans, "You three, outside, now." These three guys, obviously there for a fight anyway, are all like, "Come on then, Grandad, let's go." They all walk out of the bar, and not 20 seconds later, Ray walks back in, without a word, sits back on his stool, and sips his half of bitter. Curiosity got the better of us, so we all ran outside to see complete carnage. Two guys on the cold on the pavement, one on his backside with blood pouring out of his nose. It turns out that Ray was ex-SAS and the barmaid was his daughter. Story 2. My grandfather is a nice, funny, flirty guy. He was an executive at a manufacturing business after being the third employee. Everyone gets along with him, and he was fairly well off in my small town. One day, my cousin and I are helping him with some work, and we go to the store. There is a lot of poverty in my hometown, and one of the poorer families was at the store. My cousin makes some comments, he was kind of a prick at this point, about them being poor and what they were doing at the store because they couldn't buy anything or something along those lines. My nice grandfather grabs him and slaps him against the wall and says, "Nothing in your life makes you better than them. Right now, I'd rather have them by me than you." He then makes my cousin go apologize, and my grandfather announces my cousin will pay for whatever they're getting. He makes my cousin work off the expenses for him to prove a lesson, and now that cousin is a stand-up social worker specializing in poverty, abuse, and rehabilitation. Only time I have ever seen my grandfather be aggressive. Story 3. Gym class in high school. The quiet, nerdy kid kept getting picked on during dodgeball. One jerk kept hitting him with balls even when he was already out. The quiet kid wasn't tiny, he was about average sized, maybe a little taller than average. He eventually lost his temper, ran across the court, and literally delivered a double-handed choke slam to the jerk. Being a bunch of teenage boys, we all lost our crap cheering for him. He got suspended for 3 days, but it was reduced to 1 day in school after a bunch of us went to the principal and explained the circumstances. Story 4. When I was in high school, an upperclassman at my all-male student Catholic school followed a female teacher into the bathroom and tried to her. She screamed initially before he pulled a knife on her. The most gentle, most caring, socially awkward Latin teacher heard the scream and rushed from his classroom straight into the women's restroom. He clocked this kid across the face and dragged him out by his collar into the hall. Then he checked on a traumatized female teacher. Later, he just went back to class and continued teaching as though nothing happened. Dude knows 7 languages, has never dated anyone, and is a brilliant, always calm man. People gained a lot of respect for him after that day. He's still really weird though. Story 5. Twice in 20 years, I've seen the fury of my very patient and kind stepdad. The first time was when some 12th graders chased my brother and cousin all the way from school to our backyard, threatening their lives with pocket knives. Stepdad calmly walked to the backyard, grabbed the big kids by their throats, and lifted them up, pinning them to the fence. Stay the hell away from my kids. That was all he said, in a calm, teeth biting kind of way. The kids booked it faster than I've seen anyone run and never bugged my brother or cousin again. Then we all went inside and made some burgers. The second time was in my angsty preteen years when I called my mother a bitch. He turned at me and I've never been so scared in my life. This time he was right pissed and screamed at me until I was backed up against our bar counter, shielding myself with the bar stool legs. The second he backed off slightly, I booked it into my bedroom and barricaded myself in it with all the furniture I could find. I didn't come out for a solid day until I got up the courage to apologize. But normally, he's a teddy bear. Story 6. My dad, about a decade ago, while I was in high school. We lived on a hill, and if you go down the hill, it leads into the main part of the town where all the shops and stuff are. And if you go up over the other side, it's where a lot of the bars and clubs are. It's quicker to go over than around, obviously. Back then, my parents each had a car instead of sharing one, and we only had one space in the garage, and drunk idiots were constantly damaging Mom's car. Well, one night Dad happened to have a day off, fall in the weekend, and he could hear a group of drunk people walking up the road. His little office room is at the very front of the house, so he gets up, goes out of the front door, and just waits near the front lawn, watching. They're being loud and pushing each other around, and Mom's worried as hell and comes to get me because she doesn't want him to get hurt by some drunk idiot, and I go outside to see what he's doing. They end up pushing each other around more, and one of them bumps into the car and is leaning on it, on the hood of the car. That tells them to get away from it. They start taunting him, so he walks closer towards them, and one of the little bastards clean smashes the side mirror off while laughing at him. Dad is a 6'8" ex-basketballer, basically is just all around freaking huge and is a small man bait on a normal day. Dad hit him straight in the jaw, and you could see as his jaw completely broke, the guy is immediately screaming and bawling his eyes out at the same time, while his friends pick him up and run away. Never heard from them again, or got in any trouble for it. Dad just went back inside and watched TV. Story 7. I worked with a theater director who was well known for being one of the nicest and most intelligent people you can meet. But there was one actor in the show who was a grade A pain in the asshole. She would constantly be late for rehearsals, and once she didn't show up at all. The reason was that her girlfriend was in a car accident, but the problem was that she didn't tell the stage manager, director, or anyone that she wasn't coming. We had to find out through Facebook. This was a show with some deaf cast members, and some hearing actors who didn't know ASL had to do some signing. So we brought in an ASL instructor. This woman, though, did know some ASL and thought she knew better than the college professor and would constantly try to correct her. We were doing spacing rehearsals in one of our touring spaces with a very limited time. This is 2 months into the rehearsal process, and the director has finally had enough of her having a backhanded comment for everything. He adjusts her blocking slightly, just because the space we're in is a bit different, and she starts to say something, and the director just screams, "The show isn't about you, goddammit!" And he throws the script to the ground so that the pages fly everywhere. It's the first time any of us have ever heard him yell or curse in anger. She runs off stage crying. Then he calmly says, "Can we get back to work, please?" And then later, during a break, I overhear him talking to her about how he's going to tell everyone he knows in theater never to hire her or work with her ever again. Story 8. I knew a girl who was living with a guy who had severe anger management issues. He had kept it under control for the few years that they had lived together, but one day he snapped over some minor issue, hit her repeatedly, banged her face in the concrete, and tried to choke her until a passerby stopped him. So, obviously, the relationship was over and she was going to fetch her stuff from the apartment. She, likewise obviously, didn't want to go alone, so me, 2 other friends, and her brother, who I also knew, tagged along to keep things in check and to help carry stuff. When we arrive, her ex gave us attitude, which causes her normally extremely mild and docile brother to snap completely. He smacked the guy up against the wall with one hand and punched him repeatedly with the other, holding him up against the wall all time. Because you don't hit someone who is down. We just stood there in shock and awe. Given the way the girl looked after the beating she had received, black and blue, bruised, her entire face scraped, choke marks around the neck, and so on. We didn't much mind what was going on and just let him punch him out. Then we got her stuff and left as she started to wake up. 2 times during the following months, the ex was jumped twice when moving outdoors the evening. I don't know who did it and I don't want to know. I guess everybody has their trigger. Have you ever experienced the fury of a patient man? Let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button and I'll see you next time.